The Pac-12 block distributions to the Pac-12. Let's talk about it.
Conference realignment and expansion is always in the news, so we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten, the Mountain West, and sometimes the Pac-12.
How you doing? I am JY. This is my good friend Steve, and in this episode we want to talk about blocked payments to the Pac-12 because of Oregon State and Washington State. So if you're new to the channel, we have been following the Pac-12 issues, and specifically Oregon State and Washington State since about late August. Done many episodes on this, and this is kind of the new news that has come out. Obviously, the two sides disagreeing on what's occurring here. So I want to give you just a brief update of what happened and then the two statements from either sides and why they think one is right and one is wrong. So last week, Oregon State and Washington State blocked a revenue distribution of 15% to all Pac-12 schools. This partial distribution, such as that, at this time of year has been in place for a while. The distribution that Commissioner K has said they've traditionally done, but it's not explicitly said it would happen in the bylaws. So while they've been doing it, there's nothing written that says that it has to be done this way. On December 5th, Commissioner K notified all 12 schools that in accordance with past practice, the conference was preparing to distribute 50% of annual revenues to all Pac-12 schools for this year. This December distribution would equate to about $5 million, I think it was a little over $5 million per school. In a memo from Commissioner K, he determined that this distribution could only be made with a unanimous approval by all members. And if you remember, the TRO in which the Pac-12 is operating right now, there must be a unanimous vote in order for anything to pass. OSU and WSU decided to block this distribution. However, all Pac-12 schools approved of Oregon State and Washington State's scheduling agreement with the Mountain West just a few weeks ago. Thus, that agreement is moving forward. So that was one thing. We did 2 episodes on that. We didn't really discuss whether or not it was approved by the Pac-12. Right. Reports are now that, it was actually approved by all Pac-12 schools that Oregon State and Washington State could do this scheduling agreement with the Mountain West. So let's talk about statements. In a statement, the departing 10 say, and I'm going to paraphrase this for the most part. It's pretty close to actual, but I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. But they state, the decision distribute 15% or more of the $400 million to its members, something that has been done in December, always been done in December, has nothing to do with the future of the conference. Oregon State and Washington State's refusal to agree to this shows they are abusing their position to injure our programs and athletes, and it's in violation of past precedents. The unanimous consent that all departing members gave for the Mountain West Agreement demonstrates that Oregon State and Washington State can still plan for their future. The money the Pac-12 will receive during the 2 years after the 10's departure will support the future plans of the conference. So I highlighted here the words that they use, abusing their position. And I'm going to get back to that here shortly. There's a reason they're saying that. More than just, hey, you guys are being mean. There's a reason that they're using these words. The Pac-2 said in a statement, as the only 2 remaining members, we are committed to the best interest of the Pac-12. This means taking steps to protect assets of the conference and plan for the future. It would not be in our best interest to allow departing members to drain assets on the way out of the door while also refusing to pay their fair share of liabilities. I think both make valid points here. They go on and say some of the liabilities, we've talked about this in the past, but just want to clarify some of what these liabilities are. Obviously, there's various liabilities just within the conference, ongoing things that have been going on for potentially a few years. The big one, though, is the NCAA and P5 antitrust litigation. This is where they're seeking back pay for NIL opportunities. It's a class action suit right now. And this seeks back pay and 10% of all media rights deals for all P5 conferences.
Going back a long time.
Going back a long time. I mean, it's huge. You're talking huge money with this, what is now a class action lawsuit. The only thing I'll say, just as a reminder, and then I'll shoot it to you before I give my opinions on this. Just as a reminder, Judge Levy made it clear that all 12 should act, in his words, in a fair and open manner, and that they aren't going to take advantage of someone else. Mm-hmm. I think both of these would say that's exactly what's happening here. We're protecting ourselves from the other side taking advantage of us. The eye is in the beholder here in terms of how they're viewing this. So I'm going to leave my opinions here for a little bit. I want to hear from you first, Steve.
Yeah, so I think that this was easily predictable. Mm-hmm. It makes sense going along with what's happened so far. So you have the 10 that are leaving that are saying this breaks tradition, okay? And this conference, the Pac-12, originally Pac-8, then Pac-10, then Pac-12, they have, I think, 80-something years of tradition. The Conference of Champions and everything, a long tradition. Well, all of that tradition basically was kind of shattered when first USC and UCLA leaves, and then you have the other. So we're in new territory. So really what was done before, if it was just done by tradition is kind of gone and out the window. We're in a new territory that this conference has never faced before. Mm-hmm. There's ongoing litigation. The temporary restraining order that was first put in place by Levy, and then basically the new injunction by the Washington State Supreme Court basically resets us back to the original temporary restraining order. So that's still in place.
And I think, if I can interrupt you real quick, I think that's important here. As of today, as of when this occurred a week ago, and these statements, what's in play right now is the TRO.
The original TRO.
The original TRO. Yeah. What Levy decided on the injunction has a stay. Yes. That's not in play right now. Right? We're literally living life in a Pac-12 environment under the TRO. So I just wanted to make that really, really clear.
Which is a great point. So if you go back to that TRO, the thing is basically everything is on hold. Everything is frozen until the lawsuit is figured out and who votes and whatever. Mm-hmm. The only things that can happen are things that have unanimous consent.
Right.
All parties are agreed to it. If not, then it doesn't happen. And this allows them to pay their bills to outside sources, to pay the conference, the Pac-12 itself, to pay their employees that are able to, or so that they're enabled to run the conference, because there's still all kinds of other sports that are going to be going on between now and May. Mm-hmm. So when you look at that framework and you look at where both parties kind of have viewed things, this doesn't surprise me at all. Obviously, the 10 schools that are leaving, they want their money. They feel like they're entitled to that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, the other 2 schools don't want to give any money to anybody until it's figured out, who has control, how those assets are going to be broken down. Because they're basically scared that the other 10 are going to take their money and run out the door, and they're going to be left with the liabilities. There's the Comcast payments liabilities. There's different things with the Pac-12 network. There's a potential with these lawsuits that they, so there's all these liabilities, and they want to keep as much money as possible within the conference. And I see both sides. Obviously, if I was a president with one of the other 10, I'd want that money. I've participated in sports this year. Mm-hmm. I think that it's due me for my participation. But the problem is there's nothing in writing that says that. And the only thing that's in writing right now is a temporary restraining order that says nothing happens unless all 12 agree. And obviously all 12 don't agree right now. So to me, it's a pretty it's easy to just stay where we're at. And I know the 10 are trying to show that they're being injured in some way, that it's not fair. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand, from what I'm reading, nobody's getting a payment. It's not like Oregon State and Washington State are paying themselves and the other 10 aren't getting the payment. Nobody is getting that money. So the same thing that's happening to the other 10 is also happening to those 2. Mm-hmm. Nobody's getting any money, any payment until we figure out what's going on.
Right. And to jump on a couple things that you said, and then I want to pull out a couple other things. The 10 are saying we want this money because we're helping to earn this money.
Right.
10 of the 12 of you are all 12 of us are earning this money. So how are you not paying us for money that we have helped earn? Mm-hmm. And I get it from just purely the distribution in December. we're going off of past precedents and what has happened in the future. It's not in writing, and I get that. But at the same time, in my opinion, the Pac-12, all 12 of them, do have an equal share to this because they're all helping to earn that revenue. And that's not really what the Pac-2 statement said in response.
Yes.
It was, we're the only 2 remaining schools. Time out. No. As of today, there's 12 schools in the Pac.
Right.
We're under the TRO. We're not under Judge Levy's
Right.
preliminary injunction. So, actually, no, you're not the only 2. Right now, you're 2 of 12. That's how we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I did take a little bit issue with that. I know why they would say that. In their minds, they are the only 2, but that's not really accurate right now, and that's why I mentioned that earlier. But they're wanting to hold on to it, as you said, for reasons of future liabilities and this and that. I just feel like they're commingling things here that they probably shouldn't be, because again, the judge said, we're not going to let somebody take advantage of somebody else. Nobody hit this out of the park.
Right.
And when he said that, I take that to mean you're going to run the PAC fairly this year.
Yeah.
And by withholding revenues, and I can only assume, and so that's scary because I'm going to assume something right now. But by withholding 15% of this revenue, I would assume the PAC-2's thinking we're going to hold all revenues, and that's basically what we're saying. We're withholding all revenue distribution payments because we don't know what our liabilities are going to be. To me, that doesn't fall in line with what Judge Levy said.
Well, I think it does, and back to the argument I already said, because this would be a different situation if they were paying themselves and not the 10. Both of the sides are trying to make arguments for future motions or whatever, but in the TRO, there were 2 main parts of it. One is nothing happens without unanimous consent. Nothing happens.
Right.
So they're in alignment with that.
Yes.
And the other part is you have to be fair. Well, all 12 parties are being treated exactly the same in this as we stand right now. Now, what their future strategies might be different, but how much money is Oregon State getting right now in their distribution?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. But let me play that out a little bit longer.
Sure.
Let's come to the end of the year, and the same thing happens, where they're going to distribute 100%. Now, they didn't do the 15, so they've got all 100% to distribute, and OSU and WSU at the end of the year say no. And in your point, you're saying, well, they're being fair because nobody's getting the money.
Right.
In my point, they're taking advantage of the other 10 because they have earned that money. They have the right to that money, and OSU and WSU is withholding that money from them. The reason to me is irrelevant. The reason is the litigation. I mean, I shouldn't say it's irrelevant from the fact that they shouldn't be withholding that because it's what was earned this year. It's not irrelevant because there's huge liabilities and stuff. Absolutely, there's huge liabilities. I get it. I guess I'm just viewing that differently. That money isn't there for future liabilities of the PAC. That money was there and earned by the Pac-12 this year.
Sure.
So that's kind of where my separation is on that.
And honestly, I think that we're kind of in agreement. It's just that it's the whole timing the thing. They're saying they should get it right now. That's the thing. We're in agreement that all 12 of them have earned it. They're saying they should get it right now because that's what was traditionally done.
Yeah.
But we're not in the traditional. We're in a different space this year than they've ever been before. And so Oregon State and Washington, this move that they're doing right now doesn't mean that they will never get the money. It's very possible that the other 10 will win this case, and they will be able to decide in a 10-2 margin who gets that money, and will be able to do with it what they want. So it's more about the timing. They're saying they should get it right now because it's always been done that way, and what the other side is saying, well, yes, but the other years the 10 of you weren't leaving. We were all together. We were going to be there. So it's more about the timing, and to me, it fits with the TRO on both sides because, again, they have to be fair. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen after the other legal court cases or what their strategy. We can assume their strategies, but we don't know what's going to happen. So right now, today, Oregon State and Washington State are getting the same revenue distribution that the other parties are.
I don't disagree with that.
So it fits with the fairness of that, and they don't all agree. So both parts of the TRO are being satisfied.
Okay. I will just end with my opinion on this. I think the Pac-12 is overplaying their hand. That's just my opinion. I think they're being too aggressive with this. They had a judge in their backyard,
Sure.
who you would hope isn't biased. However, I just think they're overplaying their hand here, and that's not anti-Oregon State and Washington State. That is not anti them. That's me being an outsider saying I think they're treating this way too aggressive, more than aggressive than I would want to be. If truly we want to be fair, according to Judge Levy's ruling, and not being taken advantage of by other people, I just think they're overplaying their hand right now. They can do it, and everything that you said is 100% accurate. They are being fair amongst the 12. In my opinion, they're getting too aggressive with this for me.
Yeah, I can see that point, and I think there's some danger if the two lose the court case, then the other 10 can basically say, you know what, you tried to hold this from us, we're taking our money and we're leaving, we don't care. There's always that possibility. But the thing is if the two side, if the Pac-12 win, they're basically just holding a status quo right now, and they're holding that money. So it really. I think it comes back to what we talked about before for the reason for the settlement.
Yeah.
Because both sides have so much to lose. The two have, if they lose this court case, they're going to be outvoted 10-2 on any issue. On the other side, if they lose the court case, then only two have power. They may not get a dollar or a dime of this money, which I'm sure just is doesn't sit well with them. Mm-hmm. So I get what you're saying, but I think that goes along the supposition that those two are going to lose. Because if they are going to lose, they're basically kind of screwing themselves right now because they're making enemies of the other 10. But if they win this case, it will be looked at as being very smart that they kept this money in-house so they could deal with these problems, whether it's to close out the liabilities, to move on, to merge with another conference. We talked about them merging with the Mountain West, and maybe the Mountain West being a little tentative because the PAC has all this money they've earned before that could be held against them in this lawsuit. They have all these other liabilities. So
I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. While they may think they're winning these early battles, I think it's making things harder for themselves in the long run because it's prolonging this. It's not getting to a settlement. It's not getting clarity on any of this. Great that they have a scheduling agreement with the Mountain West for next year. That fills one of those holes. I just think they're elongating their pain. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. I just think they're dying by a million paper cuts.
And it's very possible. And again, I think it's going to come down to who wins the lawsuit. If they ultimately prevail, they're going to look like they played everything the smartest way possible. They protected themselves, which is what they did. If they lose, they're going to look like idiots, like you said. They just killed themselves.
They're going to a high risk, high reward. And we've talked about a settlement being there's no major winners or major losers.
Yes.
They are going down the path of a massive high risk, high reward. And that's not good. I mean, you've praised the university presidents. That's not being a great university president unless everybody's on board with that. And the board of trustees are like, yep, we're in this for the long haul. And if we get our heads chopped off, so be it. But again, it's just too risky for me. And maybe they're not there yet. Maybe they're still in their minds in the early stages of hardball. And that still could be. To me, they're starting to get a little too far away from neutral here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, I would just say I think both sides are in high risk. They both have the same risk, really, because the other 10 can walk away with zero money, which is going to be rough for them. The ones that are going to the Big 12, which is kind of a lower payout, and then the ones that are going to the Big 10, the two that are getting the lower payout, they could be walking into a Big 10 conference where everybody is super rich with no money. And with partial payout, I think they're getting 50% payout in the Big 10, which would be really rough. And that's the thing. And that's sometimes when you have a settlement is when both sides have a lot to lose. So I understand your points. I think both sides have a lot to lose. And to me, it makes perfect sense and it was their strategy. But we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, that's our update. I got a little long-winded there for not a major thing, but it is moving the ball a little bit. Again, not surprising, but it's interesting how they're playing these things. So, hey, with that, we're going to wrap things up. We are going to have our first live broadcast on the 19th. We're going to do some picks for bowls. We're picking every bowl this season. So if you're interested in some live episodes on the mountain, we're going to try to do our first one. Hopefully it goes well. 8 p.m. Eastern on the 19th. Hope to see you there. But if not, hey, we'll definitely see you next time on the Big Mountain.